just buildings of distraction, and I'm holding close to your reactions and the oscillating vibrations of this room. It all will come down too soon, and I think they're mad. Something baby, frozen flowers in the snow. Your soul just needs protection whenever these waters stop to flow. I've been driving around.
And we're live, streaming live for you from the shadows of New York City. We are Music Matters with Jason Tramm, and we're delighted that you can join us for our unique podcast community, where we explore the issues and challenges in the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished colleagues. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and smash that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. We love it when our guests and our fans like and share our videos and help our community grow. We are so excited to announce that yesterday we hit our 1,000th subscriber, and today we got 30 more subscribers. So we are a growing community of people of professional artists and people who love that art as well. So thank you so much for joining Music Matters with Jason Tramm, and we're so happy that that you were here. Please remember to join us in the chat feature. You can interact with the artists and with myself, and we love it when our guests ask questions. It makes the conversation more rich. And to see our library of 110 past episodes, please visit our website at www.jasontram.net for a complete library of past episodes and our upcoming months of new artists. We have some great guests coming up, and hope you can join us. Our guest tonight is a renowned indie singer-songwriter, Miss Anna May, who has released her third album recently and is doing some beautiful work. She is a multi-instrumentalist and an accomplished singer-songwriter, and we're delighted she can join us. Welcome, Anna May.
Well, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. How are things in Connecticut tonight?
Things are good. Things are very cold. I just went on a very chilly run right before this. It's about 20
Ooh. I notice a lot of your pictures are in nature. Do you get a lot of inspiration for your music in nature?
I do, yep. I'm a runner, and I've just always been very drawn to the natural world. So a lot of it does show up, especially in more recent songs. I think there's been this urge for me to kind of gravitate towards the natural world, and especially with COVID, it brought me to this kind of almost like Thoreauian mindset again, which has been beautiful for me. So yeah, the last couple of things I've released have been definitely influenced by nature, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, it's certainly been a enduring source of musical inspiration since the dawn of humanity, and I think a rich well for great inspiration. So you're in great company there, and That's very exciting. I discovered your music through a former guest, Kim Petrarca, who was on the show, and I've really enjoyed discovering your sound and your kind of ethos and the way you communicate. Very, very expressive. Did you always know you wanted to be a musician, and how did you get started?
I think so. Yeah, my family is very musical. I was always surrounded by a lot of music, whether it be like in our home or going to, great performances. I saw people like Chris Isaak and Glenn Campbell, Crowded House. Alison Krauss was someone, I got to meet her when I was very little. So my parents are huge music lovers and always really instilled that love of live performance in me. So I think I did. I was always singing, and it's funny, in this downtime, I've watched a lot of home videos of myself, and I'm like, yeah, I was singing the whole time. And so it's cool to see that, where all of the inspiration ended up coming from. And I was grateful to have opportunities to perform with my family when I was very young. So, yeah, it's been a lifelong pursuit for sure.
It's a lifelong obsession, right, for all of us. And it never goes away, that love of music. And whatever you experience that young, it kind of sticks with you and stays.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just kind of a part of who you are. And I'm lucky, yeah. I'm really happy about that.
I read in your bio that your first instrument was the piano. When did you start playing the piano?
I started playing piano when I was 6, so a very long time ago. Doesn't seem that long ago. Yeah, I took lessons a couple of towns over, Salem, Connecticut, with Susan Kaika, who's a wonderful teacher. And yeah, piano just kind of probably gave me like the structure that I needed to really organize my ideas and my inspirations and, learn theory and just have kind of the very humbling like respect for music and where it comes from. So, yes, and that led to learning organ when I was in high school and playing at a church, which I still do. It's one of my favorite jobs that I have. And so, yeah, piano is just really special to me, too.
Who are some of your favorite composers that you studied that have stuck with you?
I always say that my two favorite are Chopin and Rachmaninoff.
It's a good duo.
Yeah. What I was drawn to, I think, especially in high school, in high school I was very much not necessarily into what other people in high school were doing. And I was drawn to just so much of the romantic music and other composers too, like Bach and Mozart, and just playing, finding my way into those subtleties and intricacies was really a refuge for so many years where I felt, a little out of sync. And, come to find out, I think a lot of musicians end up feeling that, before they find their herd of people. But, having the opportunity to play and learn what those composers have done and contributed to music, that's another thing that stays with you. And I think has really influenced my music. My music is much different, but just kind of finding like some kind of a spiritual ground is what I think a lot of the classical composers do, and that's certainly what I intend to do. So I have some great influences and examples there.
It's wonderful. The classical technique and background in your music has that been helpful in your songwriting?
I think so. Structurally, yes. Learning how to move through a song and how to set structures, but also how to like abandon those structures and go off into, what I feel are like almost different dimensions. And that's something that, every composer that I've ever listened to is able to do. Debussy does it, and Rachmaninoff in a very different way. And
Debussy was such a rebel. When you study Debussy,
yes, oh, absolutely. Playing his music too is hard. It's difficult to get through.
His teachers were the teachers of the Conservatoire were so conservative. They were the opera composers of the previous generation, and while they recognized his genius and they did award him the Prix de Rome, they hated his music.
Right, right. A lot of those composers weren't accepted, and so
Especially the French.
absolutely yes, the French were the most rebellious in art too.
Always.
Yeah,
I love it. So we
yeah,
talked. You mentioned that I know a lot of musicians when they in the high school years have a tough time fitting in because sometimes the creative there aren't as many creative mentors for those type of students. As a I've taught high school for 5 years, middle school for 1 year now. I'm a university professor. It's so important that we find a way to get those kids. And music is such an important activity, and so is art and drama.
absolutely, yeah. And we had a great drama program. I think my just like my songwriting interest, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot there. Connecticut, I don't know. To me, it's very sports oriented. Um, and until like just kind of even visiting other cities and other places like Colorado, Nashville, um, yeah, I wasn't in sync with what I needed to be doing. I was trying to satisfy some other thing. And I was really grateful that I had piano and just my piano teacher. I had a great dance teacher as well, who really pulled a lot of the creative expression out of me. And but if you're feeling in any way isolated, it can be hard to want to follow that because you don't see anyone else following it, and you're feeling, so um, I'm grateful that I stuck with it. There were many forks in the road where I might not have, and I'm glad that I did. So.
Well, we're glad that you did too because your music really speaks to a lot of people. I was listening to it on Spotify, and you're getting a growing number of listens and monthly listeners on Spotify. And I think your music's really starting to touch a lot of people's lives.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very new to Spotify. I'm a rebel myself, and I resisted a lot of any like mainstream media sources for music, and kind of chose to be more under the radar. Um, but Spotify serves a purpose, and all of that stuff is doing what it needs to do to get music to listeners and get artists' voices out there. So I'm happy to be on the grid a little bit more. It's probably a good thing.
Well, what I love about this, I've learned so much. I'm a classical person, so but I love to learn, and I love to talk to artists like yourself. The indie circuit is fascinating to me because I think maybe I'm wrong on this, but let me know what you think. But it seems to me like record companies used to make these plastic characters of a lot of these pop singers, and they try to create these images that that are more plastic than real. But I think the indie circuit, people want real, and they'll gravitate towards people they find interesting and real, and there's truth in their music, and that's how you build an audience in the indie circuit.
Yeah, it does seem like that's changing. When I was growing up in the '90s, it was very. I mean, we had Pearl Jam, and we had a lot of that kind of alternative music, which always spoke to me. But there was always it was the Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, and all of that was so different from what I was hearing at home. Just in terms, my aunt sings opera, and kind of helped me get into a little bit more jazz and obviously folk. So I was hearing all of this really rich and textured, layered music at home. And I would go to school or just kind of listen to the radio, and it was much different from what I was ingesting. So, but it does seem like there was some kind of a churn, and people are, maybe as a reaction to that oversaturated pop circuit, are now wanting something a little bit deeper. And you find that everywhere, in Nashville, all over. There's definitely a market for it now, which is exciting. So that's
So you
why I
spent
just
some time in Nashville, and what has that done for your songwriting and being in the center of the songwriting world? I guess.
yeah, Nashville's very inspiring. And I would say there's like kind of two types of music in Nashville. There's definitely like the pop country focus, and then there's this kind of indie scene going on. And a lot of my friends live there, and and it's a very warm and welcoming town. Really, that's how I picture it. And you can hear any music you want. You can hear jazz, you can hear folk, you can hear country. It's just so all over the map. And while I haven't lived there, I've definitely gotten to know the city. Not so much I've performed there, but kind of more as just like a tour, not a tourist, but like someone just experiencing the city I've gone to yoga there. I've just kind of hung out, and it's a great place to just immerse yourself in. It's a vibe. It's a great, just like chill fusion of a lot of different cultures and a lot of music. So it's a wonderful place. Yeah.
Have you participated in any of the singer-songwriter workshops down there? I know Kim was talking about these really interesting singer-songwriting nights that she would go to and just get up there, and each indie singer everyone would sing their own pieces and kind of, it was kind of almost workshop them. It's really interesting. I'd never heard of this before. It's really a great kind of way to bounce ideas, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of like co-writing. I haven't necessarily, because I haven't lived there. Kim's obviously done a lot more than me there, and she invited me to a songwriter night, so I played with her and a couple writers from Austin, some from Nashville, at a really kind of old storied venue, and so things like that. Yeah, I've done here and there, and I'd love to, once all of this breaks, Nashville is definitely on the list of places to revisit and play more, because a lot of the times it's a learning and listening experience as much as it is about playing, and that's where your art changes and reshapes and gets better, I think, when you're putting yourself, you're letting yourself be a small fish in a really big pond, and seeing that perspective shift, for me was probably something I would consider just one of the most valuable learning experiences, because it makes you get better just by being around people who are better.
I always tell my students, if you want to be a great tennis player, play people who are much better than you regularly. And it's so important to put yourself in that position. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that.
I think it's true with everything. Yeah, I always played a lot of sports, and just throwing yourself into environments that might be a little bit uncomfortable, that might create an anxiety. And it's true, playing in Nashville, there's a certain, I'm playing in Nashville and I'm a little bit nervous. And I think it's healthy, as difficult as it can be, just encountering those circumstances really just gets you better. And I remember leaving a couple of times playing shows in Nashville where I felt that my writing had gotten better. Or more, what Nashville writing to me, it's more like incisive, getting to this place where it's whittled down a little bit more, it's a little bit more structured. My music doesn't always feel Nashville, because I'm definitely very influenced by alternative music too, so I can sometimes feel a little bit confined when I encounter Nashville, but at the same time, I love all that's there, for sure.
And how does your New England roots figure into your songwriting? I'm just curious how how someone's experiences really always filter into their music. And how would you say that your New England roots fit into your music?
Yeah, I would say, and I was talking about this with someone the other day, how like the East and West kind of differences. And growing up here, qualities that I find in New England are like stability and balance and quietude and just a lot of stuff that's very rooted, and that does show up, I think. It also like kind of a reflection of the natural world again. I was fortunate to grow up on the coast, so we're surrounded by beautiful, expansive beaches, and some of my best moments have just been solitude in nature on a beach, on the off season, and that's something that's so invaluable. And I realize that when I travel, not everyone has that. In Nashville, there's no beach to run off to, and so while it can be a little bit more isolative and solitary when I'm here, I love it, and I really do feel like that balance and nature connection filters in to my music, and makes it a little bit more rounded out or something. Just like there's definitely a quality that comes into it.
I spend a lot of my spring and summers and early falls at the Jersey Shore. I'm a music director at Ocean Grove, and I get to every morning I walk on the beach in the morning, and it does refresh you. And every night I end my day in the dark walking on the beach and look at the moonlight. There's nothing like that to recharge your soul and to kind of find your creativity, and it's so important.
I agree, it is important, and we don't always realize. I think the air itself, the all of that gives you like a pause whenever I kind of get going on this wheel, have to do all these things. Um, Going to the beach really charges up my creativity all the time, so I never neglect that. I always try to remember to fit that in because it will do something for your music. I know I've seen that happen, so yeah.
We have our first question from the audience. This is from Sam from Florida, and Sam asks, "How old were you when you wrote your first song, and what was it about?"
That's a cool question. It's a hard question too. I wrote a lot of poems when I was younger, and I, obviously had the piano. So I would say like probably the earliest song was maybe like 4 or 5, and it probably was something about being outside, um, something about trees, something about water, probably. And if I think of like the first like really concrete song that I wrote as like a more formed person, maybe probably when I was 12, and I wrote it about an experience being bullied at school. And that was the first time that I tapped into kind of like reacting to my experiences and realizing that when I did that, when I had that reaction, it was a really healthy response. And I had this kind of like strong pillar really to lean on. So like the experience that was negative didn't consume me. I had this other thing to go to and to like lean on. So that I do remember that, and that being a turning point.
That's so brave because, and thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, the bullying thing is so prevalent in today's society, and it was when I was growing up too, and it's just something that's always there. And I think, but it seems like it's even more now with cyberbullying and with the electronic, with the social media, and the fact that you can use your music to help get your emotions out in a healthy way. That's very, very important for kids today.
I think so. Yeah, I think, and writing is just a therapy. Even if you're not going to do something writing as a career, I think the act of doing it really takes you to a different place that's very separate from whatever you might be experiencing, and you begin to craft this kind of inner world, and I think that's really important.
What advice would you have for young kids young people today who might feel that same way?
Yeah, I would say, kind of what I did helped me, so I don't know if it would help anyone else, but finding space away from whatever is impactful and stepping away from what might be draining or what might not align with who you are, and realizing that it's okay to go against the grain. That was something big for me that I carried through, and whenever I would encounter something like that again, I would always set aside time to myself and write something or create something. And I would say that to everyone, because you're bringing it back to your own power. When bullying takes away our power, right? And when we bring it back to ourselves, that's where you feel it. You feel this kind of like gaining of strength. That's what I always felt as I was going through stuff like that.
Gaining of strength. I like that. That's really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now you teach as well as perform. What's it like to teach young people today?
It's wonderful. One of my favorite things that I do. It's so inspiring. I would urge anyone to teach. Because we all have something to teach. But what I notice specifically, because I teach piano, students are very, especially in this virtual era, some of my students who were either having difficulties before, like attention problems or whatever it may be, have really thrived in this virtual landscape, and I think it's because they're being very independent out of necessity. So I see just like these strides of progress that I kind of didn't expect, and it's really special to see that. I also something that I love to teach is improvisation, because jazz has always been very important to me. It was always something that was instilled in me, along with classical, which obviously is much different, but I've always felt that improvising really leads to the creative self, and kids surprise me so much with what they come up with for their own songs. They're so, once they learn how to improvise, they're very eager to do it again and again, and that's one of my favorite things to see what they'll come up with.
I love to watch someone just start the process of improvisation. It's fun to watch because you learn patterns and then you learn more patterns, and until it becomes organic. It takes a while to become fluent. It's like a language, to get fluent in kind of presenting your ideas and putting the syntax together.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a balance too of them learning theory and learning music in their books, and then I always want to have that kind of counter thing with the improvising. The two of them are so important.
Yeah, jazz is very special. It's like a uniquely American art form. We had a wonderful guest on from Ghana who has come up with he lives in Australia now, but he's come up with this kind of hybrid jazz reggae mixed with his Ghanaian roots, and I love the fact that it's just an interesting like paradox that the music of the enslaved Africans comes to America, gets filtered through a lens, and comes back to Ghana. It's just fascinating. It was a fascinating conversation.
Oh, I should watch that. Yeah, I love jazz so much, and it's cool. You can do so much, and that was my goal, kind of with this last release, was to take what I know about jazz and what I like about jazz and throw it into folk music. By like extending songs and leaving space for changes and variations. And yeah, jazz is so beautiful and so like limitless.
Yeah, it's interesting just to watch. I think we're seeing a lot of cross hybridization these days with all the art forms. And someone like yourself who's got background with classical and got background with jazz, I think that everything it works together and in a unique package that's uniquely you.
I think so, yeah. And the more you listen to, the more all of that stuff comes out in your music. More and more I notice that every time I set aside time to listen to music. And I think, no matter what you're doing musically, I think being open to just new sounds is really beneficial. You can never close yourself off to music of any kind. It's
Very
all
good.
important.
What do you listen to when you're just home on your iPod or on your what's on your Spotify list?
Oh yeah, it's very diverse. I always say like Sean Colvin is someone that has influenced me deeply, for lyrics, and I'll typically listen to a lot of music when I'm running, so it can be like yesterday it was Talking Heads, that was just kind of the day. I love Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, I like Lana Del Rey, I like Kate Bush, a lot of great female artists, and I think I mentioned Chris Isaak before, Leonard Cohen, so just great writers. I'm all over the map. I listen to everything.
That's great. Yeah, the more you can draw from, the more that you can bring to the table, and the more you can mix that with your own ideas. What comes first to you, the lyrics or the music?
Yeah, it depends. Probably for most of my life it would have been lyrics. Kind of before I felt really confident on either piano or guitar. I didn't really start until I think I was 21, so I am still very new to guitar, but mostly the lyrics. I do tend to have I've always had a lot of melody ideas. I have so many phone notes that it's like the space ran out on my voice recorder. I'm really interested in melody, and I can get very hung up on the melody itself, too. So it really depends on what day it is or what the idea is, but I love both lyrics and melody.
Did you take formal voice lessons in your training?
I did not. Yeah, maybe, you know what, maybe like very early on, my aunt sings opera, and she even said to me like a month ago, she was saying that I imitated her a lot because I remember being taken to her either when she was practicing or just a voice lesson, and she said that I would imitate her. Um, and I've always been kind of like that. I've never had like a voice instructor. I did a little bit of chorus in school, but I actually wasn't really in chorus. I was in band. I played the drums. So I was really into that for a while. But for singing, for me, it's just been kind of this, yeah, it's been very independent, and my voice has changed a lot over the years. You know, the more music that I listen to, it's taken on new characteristics for sure.
My youngest son's 16, and he's a very serious drummer, and he's got a rehearsal in Stamford, Connecticut tomorrow. So I had to kick him off the drum set to get to our sound check. I'm like, Mason, out of the... I've got my noise-canceling headphones. He's in the same studio. I'm like, out! It's funny that you bring that. You were a drummer. That's funny.
Great. Yeah, very amateur drummer, but I love drummers, and I love percussion. I've done a little bit of djembe. Like
We've got
really
a
got
djembe.
it.
It's wonderful music. Yep, world music, and there's just so much we can all share with cultural music, and it's really like a doorway. So we have one other question from the audience. This is from Frank from Seattle, and he asks, is there a song that you're working on now that really speaks to you, and how autobiographical are your lyrics?
They're very autobiographical for sure. Actually, you know, like for a long time, I think in my early 20s, I wrote a lot about personal experiences, and now it's shifting a little bit more. It feels a little bit more global. Um, but what am I working on now? I just wrote a song, and yeah, I'll talk about this one. I have a couple things on the back burner, but the one that I'm working on, I played a music festival, socially distanced, in September, and I played, and I was like, oh, I think I'll go for either like a walk or a run. And I ended up encountering a black bear in the woods. So I had a very awful near-death experience with a bear, you know, this year, and you know, it was like really scary. It was intimately close with a ferocious bear, and I had to think really fast about how I was going to get away from this bear. I didn't, you know, you can't read a wild animal, it's hard. So it took me, you know, I ran past the bear, so I evaded the situation. I wasn't pursued, and I didn't really process it. It was kind of one of those things that was so visceral that I kind of ignored it. And then just recently, I had kind of a resurgence of that where I was out in the woods by myself, and this sense that the bear was going to come back, or I would encounter another bear. And so I was thinking about all of that metaphorically, like, you know, these beasts that are on our path and that we encounter in our lives. And I just recently, like last week, wrote this song about it. So I'm happy with how it came out, and it's very long, and it has a few like experimental chords, I want to say. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and yeah, very autobiographical.
Cool. Well, that's certainly a unique one there. Hope that doesn't happen again anytime soon.
I hope not. No, the song was in there. I had to write it. So.
Wow. Yeah, so it's so fascinating how our lives filter into our art, and how the two are so fluid. I imagine for a singer-songwriter, that's got to be, you know, looking for topics, looking for... How often do they come to you? Do you have to keep a notebook with all the lyrics? Or so do you... Like, I know Beethoven always had a notebook to write his themes down when he woke up in the morning, because a lot of his best themes would be there in the morning and would disappear if he didn't put them on paper.
Yeah, I know that about Beethoven. Yeah, I love Beethoven. I do that. It can be very stressful. Sometimes I don't have ideas. There are phases where I really am not inspired. But then there's times where I'm very intensely inspired, and I will have, you know, song after song or idea after idea. It tends to be when things are quieter. So this whole pandemic period has been incredibly productive for me. I'm grateful. I derive a lot of my inspirations from dreams. So I have this exercise I do every morning. I try, if it's possible, most of the time it is right now, thankfully, where I can write for an hour right after I wake up. And yeah, that's when those dreams are still intact and you can still kind of find all the little details that were there, like kind of telling you something. Last night I had just some random lyrics. So yeah, it's an interesting, it can be very, I don't want to say annoying. Um, it can be like overwhelming sometimes because you do feel that you're always looking for that inspiration and documenting or analyzing, and sometimes you need like kind of a mental break from that. I know a lot of songwriters are in the same boat. It's just this constant quest, really. So.
Well, that quest to find yourself and that unique song and the unique way of storytelling and narrative storytelling. So your first album, what year did that come out? And you've done 3 now to date, right?
I have.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, is it 4? It is 4. I released like an album that I never planned to release last year. But some of them are EPs, so they're not like full-length albums. I think my first album was released in 2015. Yes. It's called Hey Houdini, and it's more Americana flavored, a little bit more country influence, I want to say. I grew up with a lot of that from my dad, so, and my dad plays on that CD, so.
That's special.
Yeah, it is special.
What was it like recording with your father?
Oh, it was fun. Yeah, we've done a lot together. With all of my tours and travels he's been on. And you need someone who knows sound and stuff like that. So, yeah, we're very similar. So we were efficient. We got in there. We did the recording, and it was fun. Yeah, I'd like to do it again. The last couple albums that I've done have been by myself, so it'd be cool to revisit that.
What have you learned in the studio that you've taken with you to all of your musical, like your live performances? What does the studio teach you?
Right. Yeah, the studio can be a humbling experience. I've only recorded really, very minimal, so I haven't recorded with an entire band yet. I plan to. But it takes a lot of, like to mentally prepare for recording. You need a lot of sleep. You need a lot of just kind of like detail-oriented focus before you go, so that you know exactly what you're going to do. So you have a plan, because the recording aspect is very, it's like it needs to be done, it needs to be set. I'm really grateful that I've been recorded by Steve Rizzo in Rhode Island, who is just like, he is someone that isn't very overly intense, I would say, and he leaves a lot of space in the music, and kind of is right on the same vibe with me of getting this like dreamscape, ethereal vibe happening. So we really speak the same language, and I love just kind of going and working with him because he's very laid back.
What's it like with you have to have that connection with the producer, and how important is that in the sound of the final product?
Yeah, I think it's hugely important, and I've only gone to him, so like when I was kind of deciding where to record, I would visit certain places or meet certain people, and everything that I always got from other studios that I went to was that it was really like produced, it was timed, it was very strict and rigid, and I was like, can I find something that's a little bit outside of these lines, and someone that might let me change something spontaneously, like if I run through a song once, like, hey, I want to record this again. We've done some cool things. We released a single called Where Is the Love, and he had me, I sing the song, and then he was like, let's try something, like, I don't even know what he did, but I ended up, I had never played any lead guitar ever. And he was like, just listen to yourself singing this and try playing something over it. And I came up with something. And, he just had like a great idea, and it turned out so well that I never could have imagined, doing that myself. So.
As a conductor, one of my favorite things is to help push, a really great performance, is to ask a really talented artist to do something maybe a little more than they thought about, and I always find that the great artists always have an extra gear that can go into it that they may not have known, and in the end, I'm glad I did, and they're glad they did too.
Yeah, no, totally. Because you need all that, like the precision and the sense that everything is set, especially when you're recording. But you also want that like spontaneity. Something cool might happen. I think all of the great, you know, musicians that have recorded probably have experienced that. I'm sure, you can hear it on a lot of tracks over the years. So.
I love the stories of artists in the studio and some of the ones. Some of the legends that have come down to us. What are some legends of the studio? Do you have any stories from the studio that you can share with us, that intimate moments or behind the scenes in some of the songs you've done?
Let's see. Yeah, like I said, I go by myself. So usually it's it's a meditative kind of independent thing whenever I'm recording.
So no one's throwing drumsticks or
yeah,
cymbals around.
Yeah, it's actually like a therapy session when I go to record. But there's couches around, like velvet couches. So yeah, nothing dramatic. But I have plenty of stories for anyone who's a musician, I'm sure, could share. They could fill a whole couple hours about stories of being in the music industry.
I'm an opera conductor. I can tell you lots of stories about crazy stuff going on backstage before we're about to go up the curtain.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We always say that behind the curtain's more of drama than actually on the stage sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you might want to spare people what goes on. But yeah, a lot of, whenever like a lot of intense or interesting personalities come together, it can be great or it can be a train wreck, and that's how I think of it.
I like how you describe your music as like a dreamscape, and you found a producer that can help you make that dreamscape a reality. And your music has such a soothing, beautiful, like your voice is, it's such a like a storytelling, almost like a Celtic vibe that tells you a story and brings you into the story. I've always found that to be such an important part of the singer-songwriter's art, is that the ability to grab you right away and to just transfix you with sound.
Thank you so much. That's really, really nice to hear that. Especially, people don't always get my music because it is, I always intend for it to be, yeah, like telling the story. I always want to throw in like some very into like philosophy, metaphor. I like to lay that into my songs, and sometimes it gets missed or just like people aren't feeling it. So it's cool when someone does connect with it.
Who are some of the philosophers you identify with? That's interesting.
Philosophers. Yeah, like the first. Well, I consider Emerson and Thoreau are my favorite philosophers or writers. But Montaigne is someone too, and he writes a lot. Obviously on solitude. And that was someone that I revisited during this time because I identified with it. But yeah, I read a lot, and Rumi, I'm all over the map with that. But I love to kind of be inspired by writing too, obviously, that isn't songwriting, that's like text and Dickens and people having.
I read in your bio that you were working on a children's book. Is that finished yet, or is something still in process?
It is finished. It's just a matter of what's been finished for a long time. I worked with an illustrator, so I think she has a couple more. I might ask her to do a little bit more before I would release it. Now is a good time to release it, so I should do that. But I just have so much, I always get pulled away with music, so, but yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that at some point. I'm happy with how that turned out. It's about a man who thinks he is ordinary, and he ends up kind of taking this really metaphysical journey with a painting through the sky, and decides that his life isn't as boring and void as he thought it was. So
I hear a song in there.
Yeah, it might be.
Can't get away from it. This a very musical and poetic story.
Yeah.
Now, have you done like music videos with your music? Have you started to create? And it's so important these days when you do like YouTube videos. How are you creating your videos, and how's the visual informing your sonic canvas?
Yes, I would love to do music videos. I love music videos. I'm really into watching them, and I think it's very artistic what people do. I have some favorites. I just watched one the other day, Kurt Vile, Loading Ducks, which was I just like that.
Ooh,
But there's been
interesting.
so many cool things over the there's too many. But yeah, the only video, like definitely in the future, I did a cool video project. That was the first song that you played in Socrates, New York, with Nick Anderson, who's a wonderful drummer. And that was filmed by Beehive Productions. So that was just kind of a live video shoot. But I loved experiencing that. So I'd love to do more of that.
Something
Sure.
to think about. So, how does when you write songs, how does performing them live in concert or in any format, how does that change or alter them? Did you find that they evolve over time, or are they pretty much set as ideas?
Yeah, and everyone's different with that. For me, my songs do change over time, and this time has been really interesting because I'm not performing live. I love live performance. I think it's just invaluable in so many ways. But yeah, like performing songs does change them, and it alters kind of your intention. Like I'll change a lyric in the middle of a song, or something like that, and the performance can pull that out of you. It's one thing to just write something on the page and have it be done, but when you're performing, like that song does evolve, and I have so many songs that are so different from what I recorded now. Like they're different now from what was recorded maybe like 3 years ago. The sound is different, like the rhythm is different. So, and I always, I say Bob Dylan does that. I feel like it's allowed. You're allowed to change your songs because they are always changing. Um,
If they're always the same as the recording, why go to the performance?
right. Yeah, I think it's cool, and especially if you're playing with a band, that it takes it to new levels for sure.
I tell my students, as I'm a conductor, and like I'll take a piece I've done a lot, let's say like a Verdi opera, like Traviata, which I've conducted probably 30, 40 times. And every time I come back to it, I put it away for a year or two, and I open up that score. It's a different work of art because I'm a different person myself. And
Right.
it's like looking at a great painting. You look at the Mona Lisa over 5 years of periods. Every time you look at it, it's a little bit different because we're different.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the perspective. Yeah, we're always changing, and um, it is cool. And we're so our art is colored by our experiences. And I like to do that too. It's like revisiting a book that you haven't read in a long time and rereading it and seeing so much that you didn't see. And yeah, I have one song from 2 albums ago that I like didn't play for a long time and started playing again, and it's like I have this log of years of experience that this song itself is still so resonant in all of the same ways, but it's like it's richer now because of what I've gone through. And yeah, it can be really cool process.
How is your songwriting and how has your songwriting changed over the years that you've been a professional songwriter? Have you noticed that your process changes?
Yeah, for a while, it got faster, which, maybe it was just like performing, the stress of being involved in the music industry. I felt a little bit pressured to come up with a product kind of. So that was something I noticed. It's slowed down, partly this year, which I think is a really good thing because it's touching into some different areas for sure. But yeah, it changes, and I think I always know that I'm always going to need that time to set aside to write, and regardless of what I'm doing or where I'm at in my life, it's so vital to be writing. But yeah, it's always shifting. It used to be way more insistent, like and angsty, and now it's just more reflective, definitely.
That's a good thing. We find that kind of calm in the storm, and you need to be in that place to create. I think you need to have that kind of safety to make that art come alive.
Yeah, and the time to dedicate to it too. We're always pulled in so many directions, but you really, if you're going to write something setting aside that space is just something you need to do.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us. How can people find out more about your music and about what you have coming up and your various interests? How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, let's see. So I have animemusic.com that has my, bio, photos, shows. There's not too many shows right now, but I do update it.
That will change soon.
Yeah, hopefully. And then my recorded music is at anime.bandcamp.com. So that has all of, everything that I've done. Then I'm on YouTube/anime folk. I'm on Instagram. It's kind of just this blog, I really do like doing that and like to show kind of different parts of myself there and, the dance side or the music side or the, whatever I'm into. So yeah, I'm out there.
Well, you're certainly a dynamic thinker and someone who really is a storyteller. And I encourage everyone to get out there and listen to this anime's music and to dive in. I think you're really going to be happy you did.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been really, really nice.
Have a great continued success as we come out of this, as we start to turn the page. And I look forward to hearing the results of all your explorations and self-discoveries.
Awesome. Same for you. I want to go see an opera.
Well, we'll have to find out. I want to see you perform live too. I don't think I've been to a folk concert in a long time, and I really would enjoy that.
Cool. It's very mellow. So awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You have a great night. Thank you for joining us on Music Matters, and please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell icon for the most up-to-date information on upcoming guests and topics. Our next show is tomorrow. That is Sunday, March 7th at 8 o'clock p.m. We have acclaimed soprano Indira Mahajan, who's sung all over the world as an opera singer, and we're delighted that she's coming to join us, and I hope you can be there as well. And thank you, and remember, keep music alive. Good night.
strange dance of elation, frustration, affection, and snow-covered grass. The beast keeps crossing your path, comprised of so many things. The beast wears horns, and the beast wears rings. Arrogance, fallacies, failures by the light of the spring. The beast has wings. Who knew how loudly the beast could sing? Setting some limits for my desires, letting it all burn away in the fire. There's a cold flame in this place. It is there, it is lace, it is broken grace. One so familiar becomes transient and rash. Working to find you, but this doesn't ever last. When danger keeps crossing your path, victims lay and find in the ground, laying you down, and the beast is crossing your path. It's an ominous still Arctic blast, invisible reckoning with the past, chronic, vivid, and endless relapse, moving air so wild and fast in the grooves of the snow, floating down just your